Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Better Hearing webinar. I am Caitlin Whitson. I am an audiologist at the UNC Hearing and Communication Center, and I'm joined by Maria Roa, who is our fourth-year Doctor of Audiology student who will soon be graduating from her Doctor of Audiology program in Pittsburgh. We are going to talk to you today about a much anticipated topic by a lot of people who wear hearing aids, and that is smartphone tips and tricks with hearing devices. So this is some information about our clinic. We are the UNC Hearing and Communication Center, and we are a nonprofit and faculty practice of doctors of audiology. So all 6 of the audiologists that work in our clinic are faculty members of UNC Chapel Hill. We serve as a training clinic for doctoral students who are studying audiology at UNC Chapel Hill, and we work with all major hearing aid manufacturers. We run on an unbundled or fee-for-service business model, which is a little bit different from your traditional hearing aid practice, which usually bundles in the cost of services and devices together. And in addition to working with hearing aids, we also offer vestibular and tinnitus specialty testing. We have 3 locations that we see patients at, our main clinic and 2 satellite clinics in Chapel Hill and Hillsborough, North Carolina. For an appointment, call the number that you see on your screen. And if you're watching this right now, you're watching it on YouTube, so you've already found us. Please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when new webinars appear, and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/UNCHCC. And you can also stay up to date with our clinical news and new webinars when they're posted. Today, we're going to be talking about all things related to Bluetooth, smartphones, and hearing aids. So we're going to be talking about improving your phone communication, a general background on Bluetooth, pairing tips, making hearing aid adjustments with your hearing aids, streaming audio, and improving the audio from cell phones without hearing aids. As a big disclaimer, I want to say that technology can change very quickly. As Maria and I were putting together this webinar, even over the course of the last month, new technology updates were being released. So keep in mind, if you're watching this on YouTube, if this video is older, it may be outdated at this point. And discussing technology can be dense, so please rewind this video as you need to. Slides were available if you watched the live version of this, but you can watch this YouTube video as much as you want. So before we get into smartphone tips and tricks, I just want to talk about improving communication on the phone in general. And we need to know and understand what some different principles of good communication are. So something that we learn in grad school when we're studying audiology are what really hinders good communication. And the 3 things are distance, background noise, and reverberations or echoes. So really we want to avoid these 3 things. And there are some ways that we can mitigate these areas to make communication better. So of course we want to reduce background noise to have a good, clean speech signal. Speak clearly. Speak within a close distance of each other. You want to get the listener's attention first, so saying their name before you start talking. Try to move away from reverberant areas or echoey environments. Look at the speaker's face, because we get a lot of help with our speech understanding by seeing the lips move and lip reading or speech reading. Be willing to rephrase or repeat what was said or what was missed by the listener. And on both ends, we really need to be patient, because communication can be difficult with hearing loss. On the phone, there are some specific challenges that need to be overcome. So, of course, on the phone, outside of a video call, are no visual cues. There's no lip reading. You're completely relying on the audio signal coming from the phone. There's no visible body language. Also, the phones, when they transmit audio, they are cutting the low frequencies as well as the high frequencies from the call. So we get a reduced frequency spectrum of speech. Of course, people speak quickly on the phone. People are often working and trying to get through their day and make their phone calls. So reminding people to slow down is really important. Some people are willing to and some people are not. And of course, unfamiliar accents or unfamiliar jargon when people speak from different parts of the world or different parts of the country can make it difficult to understand what they're saying if you're not familiar with it. So some things we want to keep in mind for communication on the phone are, do both people have good cell phone reception? Is it noisy around you or the other person? Are you listening with just one ear or are you using two? Because we know that listening with two ears is always better than one. Can you use speakerphone or earbuds instead? And that would get you the sound into both ears. Are you distracted? Like, are you in the car trying to drive while you're having a conversation? And are you able to video call instead so that you can get the benefit of seeing someone's face? Now, if the call quality is poor, that may or may not be helpful. So background noise is one of the biggest issues with speech understanding. We really need a good, clean speech signal to understand the person well. So there's some strategies we can implement if there's background noise around you. So if you're having a hard time understanding and there's noise around you, of course, you could move away from the noise or call the person back when you can be in a quiet area. You could also use something like noise canceling headphones or earbuds to put over the ear to physically block out the background noise around you. But what if it's noisy around you and you're doing okay, but the person on the other end of the line is having a hard time hearing you? Well, some strategies for that, of course, moving away from the noise or calling the person back. If you're in the car, you could use speakerphone or stream the call to your hearing aids if you have Bluetooth enabled hearing aids, or use earbuds instead of the car Bluetooth. If you've ever talked to someone on the phone while they're using their car Bluetooth, you know that the road noise can be really loud and it can make it challenging to hear that person. If you're on a FaceTime call, and this is not necessarily in the car anymore, but if you're on a FaceTime call, there is a way to reduce the background noise around you by changing the microphone mode. This is brand new to iOS 15, so it's only for iPhones and it's only for FaceTime calls, so not traditional voice calls. This is a really nice feature and it works pretty well. So I want to give some steps on how you can set this up yourself. So if you have an iPhone and you're on the FaceTime call, you can swipe down from the upper right-hand corner of your screen and it pulls up your control center. And in the control center, you'll see this mic mode option. And if you click that, it pulls up a menu with different options for how you want the microphone to take in your sound and transmit it out to the other person. If you choose the voice isolation option, it reduces some of the background sounds around you and really pulls out your speech so that the other person can hear you better. So if you're on a FaceTime call with a grandparent or with anyone who has trouble communicating when there's background noise, turn on this voice isolation mode to help them hear you better. So for the rest of the talk, we will be talking about Bluetooth and hearing aids and smartphones. And you may be asking yourself, well, why should I even use Bluetooth with my hearing aids. It's all too complicated. So what's the benefit for having to learn this new technology? Well, having a phone call go straight into your hearing aids can reduce the background noise since it's prioritizing the audio signal from the phone. It also reduces the distance that the sound waves need to travel to get to your ear. They're already right there close to your eardrum. It also adjusts the frequency response of the audio from your phone according to your hearing loss. And one other point that's not mentioned here is that it gets the sound in both ears. And we know that hearing with 2 ears is always better than hearing with 1 alone, assuming you're fitted with hearing aids in both ears. So what is Bluetooth exactly? So let's go through to explain this a little bit further. Bluetooth connectivity is referring to technology that establishes a wireless connection between electronic devices for the purpose of exchanging data. So think of your phone sending an audio signal to a portable speaker or to earbuds. In this picture, you see a woman using a Bluetooth headset to have a phone call or maybe listen to music. So the data being exchanged is an audio signal. Bluetooth connections are generally considered safe from hacking because to pair the two devices together, both devices have to accept the connection. The data transfers over radio waves in a really high frequency range, the 2.4 gigahertz band, and data can really only be exchanged over short distances. So there's some vocabulary we want to talk about when we're talking about Bluetooth connectivity. We say the paired, connected, streaming. So pairing is when a connection is established between two devices. Connected means that both devices are paired, their connection is active, and data is ready to be transferred. Not connected is when two devices may remember each other, but one may be powered off or out of range. But once they're powered on, they reconnect automatically. Forgetting or unpairing devices is deleting that established connection so that even if both devices are turned on, they don't remember each other. They can't talk to one another. And streaming refers to the transmission of either audio or video through a computer or a mobile device. So watching this on YouTube right now, you are streaming this YouTube video. So hearing aids give us two capabilities with Bluetooth streaming from a phone. We get the audio streaming of phone calls, video calls, any type of media, music, or podcasts. But then the Bluetooth capabilities also give us the ability to make adjustments to our hearing aids. So changing the volume, changing listening programs, checking your battery life. And some manufacturers give you the option for some data logging, tracking your steps, how many hours a day you're wearing the hearing aids. And we'll get into all of this in a bit. So there have been many versions of Bluetooth throughout the years. Bluetooth was first released in the 90s, and it allowed two devices to talk to each other. But as far as audio transmission, there was really only one-way transfer of audio from one device to another, but the second device could not send audio back. The connections with Bluetooth Classic also remained stable for a few seconds, anywhere up to a few hours. And this put a tremendous strain on the battery life of both devices. So they have pretty short battery life, which is not great for hearing aids because we need to be able to wear them all day, every day. Bluetooth 2.1 was released in about 2007, and it's often referred to as the hands-free profile because it enabled two-way audio streaming. So you can think of that like this Bluetooth headset that this woman's wearing. She's able to hear the audio coming from her phone, and it's got a microphone on it to pick up her voice to send it back to her phone so that she can have a phone call hands-free. Unitron and Phonak hearing aids are two brands that use this protocol today for their audio streaming. Bluetooth 4.0, we call the Bluetooth Low Energy Profile, or BLE, and it was released a few years later in 2011. It operates in the same frequency range, and because it's low energy, it puts less of a strain on battery consumption. And the way they accomplished this was by having the devices go into a sleep mode unless they were actively transmitting data. So the two devices do have to be in a pretty close proximity to each other, and they really need to have a clear line of sight. One thing to note about the Bluetooth Low Energy is that the audio signal is pretty compressed. And if you know anything about audio and hearing aids, you know that for speech, having a compressed signal is not too bad, because really all hearing aids compress speech to a degree. But it's really not okay for music. So listening to music through any type of device that uses Bluetooth 4.0 does not always give you the best quality. Bluetooth 5.0 was released in 2016, and it increased the range, speed, and data capacity of this data transmission, but the audio was still compressed. Bluetooth 5.2 is the newest version of Bluetooth that was just released in 2020. And its focus is improving the quality and stability of audio streaming while in this low energy profile. Additionally, it's enabling a single device to pair to multiple potential headphones. So it's not just a one-to-one transmission, but a one-to-many transmission. But it should be known that there are no hearing aids or phones that yet exist that are using this Bluetooth 5.2 low energy audio profile. It's set to be released over the course of the next 2 years in new devices. Made for iPhone is the last version of Bluetooth I want to talk about, and it's one that we'll talk a lot about today during this webinar. The Made for iPhone Bluetooth profile was released in 2005, and it's had various updates throughout the years. This is a proprietary Bluetooth protocol that's owned by Apple. It's used in iPhones, iPods, and iPads, and it is not Android compatible. There are hearing aid brands that utilize this Made for iPhone protocol, and we talk about these brands as being made for iPhone hearing aids. And those are Oticon, Signia, Starkey, Resound, and Widex. So if you have one of those hearing aids and you've purchased it in the last 4 or 5 years, it probably uses a Made for iPhone Bluetooth protocol. So Phonak and Unitron use the Bluetooth 2.1, the hands-free profile for audio streaming, and they use the newer version, the low energy, for their app connectivity. The other manufacturers use the Made for iPhone protocol, both for audio streaming and app connectivity. And I mentioned just a moment ago that the Made for iPhone protocol is not Android compatible, but that is not entirely true anymore. Newer generations of these brands, or the models within these brands, may use what's called the ASHA protocol. And this is the Android or audio streaming to hearing aids that is built into the Made for iPhone protocol. So this was released just a few years ago, and it's starting to roll out more and more in newer hearing aids. So for audio streaming and app connectivity, you will typically pair through the hearing aid manufacturer's app on your Android phone. Some may pair directly in the Bluetooth menu. It varies by manufacturer, and it varies by phone model. For most of today, we're not going to get too much into Androids because they vary so drastically. We'll mostly focus on the Phonak and Unitron with their Bluetooth 2.1 and the other Made for iPhone brands. At this point, I'm going to switch it over to Maria.
Thank you, Dr. Whitson, for that nice review on Bluetooth technology. We're going to go ahead and dive right in to how to pair your Bluetooth-enabled hearing aids to your smartphone. Okay, so regardless whether you have an iPhone, an Android, as long as your hearing aids have Bluetooth capability, you're going to follow 3 general principles. You're first going to enable your phone's Bluetooth because this is going to allow your phone to talk to new devices. Next, you're going to restart your hearing aids in order to put them into pairing mode. That's one of the key terms that Dr. Whitson used earlier, and it means that they're looking to establish a connection. Lastly, you need to establish that connection. So you do need to confirm these pairing requests, which will be on your phone as soon as they find the hearing aids. Now, to maintain that connection, you do want to keep your phone and hearing aids at a close distance to maintain that communication. This means that no matter what, your Bluetooth needs to be enabled for them to talk to each other. So for made for iPhone hearing aids, there is a pretty unique pairing process. You're going to enable your Bluetooth in your iPhone settings. So go ahead and open up the settings. At the very top, you should see Bluetooth, and you'll know that it's enabled when you click the little swipe button on the right so that it's green. There's also a shorter, easier way to make sure that your Bluetooth is on with iPhones. If you have an older generation iPhone with a home button, you're going to swipe up from the bottom of your screen, and that pulls up the control center. If you have a newer iPhone version that does not have a home button, you're going to swipe down from the top right of the screen, pulls up the same center, and you'll know that Bluetooth is enabled when it is blue. Next, you're going to put your hearing aids into pairing mode. And please note that this is true across phones and manufacturers. To restart your hearing aids, if you have a disposable battery, you're going to open and close your battery doors. If you have a rechargeable hearing aid, you can either put them in the charger and take them out, or you can hold down the bottom button for about 5 seconds, which turns the hearing aid off. You release the button and then you do it again to turn it back on. If you have a hearing aid that only has a single button, then do the same process on that button, and you'll want to do that for each device if you have two. Also note that pairing mode is active for about 30 to 60 seconds once the hearing aids fully turn back on. So you want to make sure that you have your phone ready once you do this. So with iPhones, to establish that connection and accept the pairing, you're going to use the accessibility menu in your iPhone settings. So go ahead and open the settings, scroll down until you see accessibility, then click on that and you should see hearing devices. Once you enter hearing devices, the phone is going to be searching for the hearing aids as long as they're still in pairing mode. From there, you can accept the pairings and they're talking to each other. Also note that if you want to download your hearing aid manufacturer's smartphone application, there might be a second pairing process needed. Certain manufacturers like Signia do require that you restart the hearing aids and repair directly through the application. And you'll be walked through this and how to do this once you download the application. So for those of you out there that have a Phonak or Unitron hearing aid or hearing aids, this pairing process is going to look a little different, and we can break it down into two basic steps. The first step is you're going to pair your hearing aids directly to your phone's settings, or the Bluetooth through your phone settings. This is using Bluetooth version 2.1. So open up your settings, whether you have an Android or an iPhone, find Bluetooth and enable it. And then you're going to restart the Bluetooth communicator hearing aid, which is typically the right hearing aid. So once you see it pop up on your menu on the phone, you can go ahead and select it and they're paired. Also recognize that there are cases where the left hearing aid is the Bluetooth communicator. And if this is your case, you probably know this because by default, your audiologist had to change it to be the left. The second process is to pair the hearing aids directly to the smartphone application, which uses a different type of Bluetooth. So you want to download either the My Phonak or Unitron Remote Plus application in the Google Play Store or the App Store if you have an iPhone. When you open up the application, again, you're going to be prompted to restart both hearing aids this time, and you'll accept the pairing process once the phone finds them. For those of you that are savvy technology users out there, this is a pro tip. If your computer or other device, like a tablet, has Bluetooth that's compatible with your Phonak or Unitron hearing aids, they can actually be paired directly. What this means is that you will use the first step that we talked about, which means that you're going to restart the single hearing aid. And here's a nice little picture that shows how that would work. Now, if you had any issues getting through this process, there are some things that you should check first. Number one, you need to make sure that your iOS or Android operating systems are up to date. If you have old software on your phone, there might and potentially will be issues with Bluetooth connections. So if you do need an update, you want to make sure that your phone is plugged in, charged, and connected to Wi-Fi. Let those update and then try again. Second, the phones don't like too many open applications. So if you have any running applications in the background, you want to make sure that they are completely exited and not running while the pairing process is happening. Third, multiple hearing aids paired to one phone is not a good idea. So you want to make sure that you forget the old hearing aids before pairing new ones, because this can confuse the phone. It doesn't really know what it's trying to connect to since it's already talking to someone. Lastly, if your hearing aids are paired to multiple devices, this can cause some confusion as well. So if you're trying to pair to a second or a third device, let's say a computer or a tablet, but you're already paired to your phone, make sure that you disable your phone's Bluetooth for the time being while you're trying to establish a new connection. You can turn it back on later. So we're going to go back to those two main abilities that Dr. Whitson previously mentioned. Why pair your hearing aids to your phone? Well, first, we're going to talk about how you can adjust your hearing aids using your smartphone. So if you have an Android, your hearing aids can only be controlled or adjusted directly through your hearing aid manufacturer's application. This means that you do have to download that application. If you have an iPhone, you've got one of two options. If you've got an iPhone and you own a Phonak and Unitron hearing aid, again, controls can only be accessed through the hearing aid manufacturer app. All other hearing aids, the controls can be accessed through the iPhone with built-in features. Or if you would like extra and additional features, you can download the application as well. Here is a list of the latest smartphone applications that are out there for these main companies. So the ones with the little stars next to them mean that the application is required regardless of what phone you have in order to control your hearing aid. To download, again, open up the App Store or your Play Store, search the name, and then install it. So we mentioned earlier that if you have an iPhone, you've got two options. You might be able to control your hearing aids directly through your phone. This is true. So if you have a made for iPhone hearing aid, there are certain features that are already built in. Some of these features include an estimation of your battery life, which you could see up here. You've got a way to control your volume, a way to change your programs if you have more than one, and then some unique features made for the iPhones that include Live Listen, which turns your iPhone into a hearing device or like a remote microphone. You've got background sounds to our right, which allows you to have some different sound generators. And this is really nice if you've got bothersome tinnitus. And then lastly, we've got microphone input options, which is a brand new feature that they've just added. And we're going to get into this a little bit later. So to access these features, you've got two options. You can either click or swipe. To use this click access, if you have an older generation iPhone with a home button, you're going to triple click the home button, so 3 times fast. If your iPhone does not have a home button, then you're going to use the side button to the right and click that 3 times fast. That's going to pull up that menu. Alternatively, you can swipe down if you have a newer generation iPhone without a home button, again, from the top right of the screen. If your iPhone has a home button, you're going to swipe up from the bottom of the screen, and then you're going to find that little ear icon and you can access that same menu. So the second thing that we could do is stream audio from the phone. There are certain requirements needed for audio streaming. So if you have a Phonak or Unitron hearing aid, again, you need to pair directly to the phone. And this is typically with the right hearing aid, unless your audiologist has told you otherwise. For made for iPhone hearing aids, once you're paired to the accessibility menu, there's no further action that you need to take. You're already going to be streaming all of your phone's audio into your hearing aids by default. Forgot to mention, if you have a Phonak and Unitron hearing aid and you look at your Bluetooth menu, you might see this LE right or left Phonak hearing aid show up. This stands for low energy Bluetooth, which is the Bluetooth that's used when you're pairing to their application. So that is what you'll see if you pair to the app to control the hearing aids, if you're wondering. So when we're thinking about audio streaming, one of the things that we stream are phone calls or video calls. And there are 2 main ways to do this. First is a 2-way streaming or hands-free profile. This means that your voice, when you pick up a phone call, is actually picked up by the hearing aid microphone. That means that you don't necessarily have to take your phone out of the pocket. Hearing aids that run on hand-free profiles can answer or deny calls using the on-ear hearing aid buttons. If your hearing aid has one-way streaming, that means that your voice is still getting picked up by your phone microphone. So in order for the person on the other line to hear you, you have to hold your phone near your mouth. And you also can't answer or deny calls using just the hearing aid. You do have to have your phone on you at all times. So what about which hearing aids use what? Phonak and Unitron are the 2 hearing aids that use the traditional hands-free profile for 2-way streaming. So a few tips for this. Even though you don't necessarily have to have your phone on you, you do want to keep a close distance between your phones and your phone and the hearing aids to keep that connection strong and have no call dropouts or anything like that. So not only is the hearing aid microphone picking up your voice, but it's also picking up sounds around you. And that's a really good thing to keep in mind, because if you're at a noisy place like a grocery store or a restaurant and you answer a call, yes, they're going to be hearing you, but there's also going to be a lot of noise that they're hearing too. So there's a pro tip to that. There is a way to reroute the audio back to the phone when this is needed. And we're going to get into this a little bit later. For the remaining companies out there like Oticon, Signia, Starkey, Resound, and Widex, they're made for iPhone. Made for iPhone has traditionally used one-way streaming. So you have to have your phone close to you for the other person to hear. This actually has a lot of pros with it. Because your phone is close to the hearing aids, there's usually a good connection and not a lot of dropouts. And there's also a good audio quality for the recipient when the phone is the one picking up your voice, because it cuts out a lot of that noise. And surprise, there's actually been an update for these made for iPhone hearing aids, which now allows two-way streaming for select models, meaning that now you can also have hands-free phone calls. The only difference is that made for iPhone hearing aids still cannot answer or deny calls using those on-ear controls. You still have to use your phone. If you're not sure whether or not your hearing aid is compatible for this update, ask your audiologist. So going back to that two-way call streaming feature that's brand new, this is how you're going to access it. So again, under that control center, you're going to find your little ear icon, and then you're going to see that input options setting that we talked about earlier. By default, it's on automatic, which means that the hearing aid is choosing whether it wants to communicate with the left or right hearing aid to pick up your voice. I would recommend leaving it on that setting. However, this is a neat feature because you also have the option to turn this off. And when you turn it off, that means that the phone, or I guess the hearing aid, goes back to one-way streaming, which means you can toggle back and forth between hands-free and holding your phone up. And so that's unique to iPhone right now. All right, so there are some additional audio routing principles that you should be aware about. So by default, the phone dictates where the audio output is going to be sent to, and it's typically going to choose the strongest device or the device with the strongest connection. So this might be your car if you're connected to your car with Bluetooth. This is true for phone calls and other media audio. So unless the default settings are changed, both types of audio will be sent to your hearing aids typically. There's good news though, because when it's needed, the audio can be rerouted and you can choose where you want it to go. So if you have an iPhone, to access the default settings, you're going to, again, find that accessibility menu. And when you pull it up, you're going to see an audio routing option. Now, if you click on that, you're going to have a couple of things to choose from. So remember, audio is generally categorized into call or media, calls being literal phone calls or FaceTime, and then media really encompassing all other output from the phone. You can choose, yes, I want my hearing devices to always get the audio, or never, or you can let your phone decide, and that's up to you. If you have Phonak and Unitron, the best or simplest way to find this routing default is by going into your phone settings, swiping down or trying to find the search bar and then search audio routing. From there, you want to pick Bluetooth headset because Bluetooth headset is always going to prioritize your hearing aid for phone calls. So, oh no, wait. Okay, so if that was a little vague, here's a little video to walk you through it. So I've opened up my settings, I've swiped down so that I can get to this search bar, and I'm searching call audio routing, which is right there. Now, once I click it, it takes me directly to that setting where I have these choices to pick from. Perfect. Okay, so if you want to reroute, even though you've changed your default settings, there are ways to do this, not just on iPhones, but also on Androids. So keep that in mind. If you're on a call and you either dial or answer the call, typically on your screen, you would see this little icon here that says audio. It's usually what you would press if you want to get to speakerphone. But when you're connected to your hearing aids, a different type of menu pulls up and it's going to give you different settings. So if you want to listen to that call directly from your phone, you're going to pick iPhone. If you want it on speakerphone, you've got that option. And yes, this is, I think, in German, but this is supposed to be your hearing aid. Click that if you want it to be rerouted to your hearing aid. You might also see additional devices if you're paired to anything else like your computer. So to reroute media, in general, with iPhones, you're going to try to locate what we call the AirPlay symbol, and that's that symbol right here. That's going to be found in the application. So here are some screenshot examples of what that could look like. It could be found in a variety of different places. And alternatively, you can use your control center again, so swipe down or swipe up, and then you'll see that same little symbol in that top right corner. So you can click that and tell your phone where you want that audio output to go. And that sums up my portion for streaming and connecting to your hearing aids with your smartphone. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Whitson.
Thank you for Maria for that great overview on how to pair hearing aids. It can get really complicated really quickly. So I hope everyone can use this as a reference point if ever something's not working quite right and you need to do some troubleshooting at home. So I want to switch gears now and just thinking about improving communication in general. Not everyone has hearing aids, but they want to improve their hearing abilities. Maybe they can't afford hearing aids, or maybe they're just simply not ready. Maybe they don't really have enough hearing loss yet to take the plunge into getting traditional hearing aids. So there are some other options that I'm really excited to talk to you about today, specifically for use with an iPhone. So the AirPod Pros can be set up to be amplifiers. So if you have a pair of AirPod Pros, you know that there are two main modes. So there's a noise canceling mode, which blocks out surrounding sounds and really prioritizes the audio coming from the phone, whether that might be music that you're listening to or a phone call. And it also has a transparency mode that you can switch into, which allows you to hear your surroundings as if there's nothing in your ears. I use mine mostly if I'm at the gym, I'm listening to music, but I want to have awareness of my surroundings. So I have on transparency mode. On the reverse side, if I'm in my car driving and someone calls me, I can pop in my AirPods and turn on the noise canceling mode, and it reduces all the background noise of the road noise. And I can really hear my phone call easily and hands-free and in both ears. And this is something you don't need hearing aids for. So the thing I'm most excited to talk to you about today is when you're in transparency mode and you're listening to your surroundings, you can actually have that be amplified. So this is really only for people with mild to moderate hearing losses because it only amplifies so much. But this can help give you better awareness of your surroundings and hear soft voices more easily. So what you need is an iPhone that has an updated iOS. So this was released actually with the last generation of the operating system for iPhone 14. Currently, the iPhones are on version 15 of their operating system. And you need to have the AirPod Pros. There are a couple other models that work with this that will be on the next slide. But you need to kind of already know how to use them because I'm not going to talk about how to use them and change between noise canceling and transparency modes today. But when you get them, it walks you through the setup and it's pretty straightforward. You do need to be kind of familiar with how to navigate an iPhone and manipulate some settings. And ideally, you'll have a recent copy of your hearing test, which is called an audiogram, but you can also use the custom audio setup that's built right into the iPhone. So the steps on how to set this up is you need to put on your AirPods and make sure that they're paired and that you have Bluetooth enabled so that they're actively connected to each other. You're going to go into the settings and then find the accessibility menu. Inside the accessibility menu, there is an audio visual button. You're going to click that. And when you click on that, it opens up this other menu that has the headphone accommodations probably turned off if you haven't used it yet. And when you turn that on, you'll get this long menu generating. At the top, there's an option for a custom audio setup. And there are also some quick buttons for changing the quality of the sound and how much of a boost in sound you get. All of these options, so if you change the boost or you do the custom audio setup, it's going to apply not only to your transparency mode to let you hear your surroundings a little bit more loudly, but also to your phone calls and your media. So this is a larger screenshot of the screenshot from the last page, just so you can see it more easily. This feature is available not only in the AirPod Pros, but the EarPods, which are the wired version, and some of the models of the Beats brand of headphones and earbuds. So like with anything, there are pros and cons to this. Some pros being that AirPods are much less expensive than traditional hearing aids. They're widely accessible. You could go online right now and order a pair and they could probably be shipped to you in a couple days. They're pretty easy to set up. They're really useful for improving everyday communication and phone calls. And it really doesn't look like a hearing aid for those people who are apprehensive to wear traditional hearing aids. But the cons are that it's really only for mild to moderate hearing losses. And it should be kept in mind that AirPods are not FDA approved to be over-the-counter hearing aids. They are really meant for people with normal hearing who have some communication trouble or have trouble hearing soft sounds and soft speech. But they're not meant to be hearing aids. The battery life is also really short. So hearing aid battery life is about 18 hours a day on a single charge, or up to 30 with some brands. AirPods only last about 4 hours. So they're really only meant to be used situationally. As you start to increase the volume with traditional hearing aids, there are algorithms in place to keep them from whistling. And this is something that your audiologist programs in. But AirPods, when you start turning the sound up, it gets louder, sound gets out of the ear and escapes, and you get some whistling sound called feedback. The AirPods are not going to be as advanced as hearing aids for preventing that feedback from happening. And of course, AirPods are not able to be as precisely fine-tuned frequency by frequency as traditional hearing aids would be according to your loss. So maybe good for a starter amplifier, something situational to give you a little boost here and there that you don't have to buy full-blown hearing aids for. But keep in mind, these are not meant to replace hearing aids for people who are traditional hearing aid candidates. So in summary of everything we've talked about today, Bluetooth and mobile technology is constantly changing. Even as we made this webinar, the day that we were presenting this, things were changing and we were updating slides. Hearing aid connectivity enables both audio streaming and it allows you to make adjustments to your hearing aid settings. And this is improving every day as well. Streaming to your hearing aids can improve speech understanding on the phone. And for thinking about amplifying surroundings, using other amplifying devices could be a good option for people with mild to moderate hearing losses. And please consult with your audiologist if you are having any type of communication difficulty. It's not just about hearing aids, but there are a lot of other strategies we can implement in order to improve communication. So even if you don't have hearing aids, you don't want hearing aids, but you're having trouble, please go see an audiologist because we are always happy to help. So that concludes our webinar for today. If you have questions, comments, please feel free to write comments down below. Please like this video, and we will see you next time.